What happens when a rags to riches boy meets a boy born with a silver spoon? Rolls-Royce happens. With a market cap worth $13.15 billion, Rolls-Royce is among the world's top luxury car manufacturers. But did you know that this company resulted from a poor boy's engineering brilliance and the equally incredible business acumen of a privileged aristocrat? In today's video, we'll see the men behind the iconic Rolls-Royce. Henry Royce's early life. Henry Royce was born in 1863 to flour mill operator parents James and Mary, but the family's mill failed, leading the family to go to London for work. Little Henry's father worked for another mill but was still deeply in debt. Tragedy struck just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse. Henry's father died when he was only 9 years old. A death in the family was not only heartbreaking, but it also exacerbated the financial difficulties they were facing. Young Henry had no choice but to work full-time. He delivered telegrams for the post office and sold newspapers. But this wasn't enough. Henry's mother was still drowning in debt, so she sent him to live with an old couple, even though they barely got by. All Henry had to eat was a slice of bread soaked in milk frequently, which led to malnutrition, and combined with his childhood labor, these factors contributed to Henry having health issues for the remainder of his life. Henry had barely finished 1 year of school by the age of 15, so his aunt assisted with some semblance of education by paying the minimal cost required to join an apprenticeship program with the Great Northern Railway Company. While Henry's aunt could cover the apprenticeship fee, she couldn't afford to pay for his lodging. Fortunately, Henry was able to move in with George Yarrow, whose son also apprenticed for the railway business. George taught the two lads how to handle tools, which fascinated Henry. The young Royce spent many hours practicing, and despite being only a teen, he was soon creating wonderfully made brass wheelbarrows in the Yarrow shed. Despite not having a formal education, Henry was an excellent craftsman with a strong work ethic. However, his aunt's money ran short, and Henry needed to drop out again after 3 years of apprenticeship. At 17, Henry began working for a tool manufacturer in Leeds, earning only a penny an hour. He then worked for Liverpool's Electric Light and Power Company. He worked harder and longer than his colleagues and even missed meals to fiddle with electronics. He eventually saved enough to take electrical engineering lessons at the City and Guilds Institute. And at 19, Henry began working at Maxim Western Electric's chief electrician. But when the company failed in 1884, Henry was laid off. Instead of job hunting, Henry created his company even with just £20 in his pocket. And Ernest Clermont, a friend and engineer, joined Henry with £50. Together in 1884, they founded F.H. Royce & Company. The men leased a Manchester building on 1A Cook Street and lived in a single room above the shop. They barely ate and had sandwiches every day. And after extensive testing, they developed their first sold-out product, the electronic doorbell. The company also sold generators and electric cranes. During that period, very few people possessed cars. Nonetheless, Henry Royce was among the first to develop an interest in autos, purchasing a second-hand 1901 two-cylinder French car. It had so much damage, but Henry had it working again by the next day. He continued to improve on all of the flaws he discovered. Eventually, Henry decided to create his own car, and by 1904, he'd manufactured 3 cars named Royce 10. The first automobile was for himself. The second was given to his business partner Ernest. The third, however, was sold to Henry Edmonds, a director of Royce's company. Edmonds was impressed with the vehicle that he introduced car dealer Charles Rolls to Henry Royce. Charles Rolls' early life. Born in 1877 to the first Baron and Lady Langattock, Charles Rolls often fiddled with mechanical devices from a young age. He studied mechanical and applied science at Cambridge University and worked on a yacht before joining the London and North Western Railway. Charles was also one of the first persons in the United Kingdom to buy a car. There's an 1896 photo of him in his Peugeot Phaeton. The first Baron Langattock gave Charles the money to start a car dealership called C.S. Rolls & Co., where he imported French automobiles to sell to English buyers. Charles Rolls was a well-known motorhead. He he held the unrecognized land speed record of 83 miles per hour. And in 1903, Charles competed in the Paris to Madrid town-to-town race. While many people died during that race, Charles loved the turmoil and continued racing yearly, no matter how deadly the races were. Charles also loved flying. He flew over 170 hot air balloon flights and would go on to fly around 200 Wright Flyer flights. And before we go on to how the Rolls-Royce brand was built, subscribe to the channel by clicking the red button. Click the notification bell so you'd be notified whenever we release a new video. Building the Rolls-Royce brand. When Charles Royce first met Henry Royce, he hesitated because he enjoyed 3- and 4-cylinder autos, so he wasn't sure about Henry's 2-cylinder vehicle. But after driving Henry's automobile, Charles was so delighted with the excellence of the Royce 10 that he wanted to collaborate with the car maker. Charles returned to London that evening in the borrowed Royce 10, and he woke up his business partner, Claude Johnson, in the middle of the night and excitedly declared that he had just found the greatest motor engineer in the world. Charles Rolls and Henry Royce founded Rolls-Royce on December 23, 1904. Both men put something on the table. Henry had spent several years perfecting electronics and mechanical devices, and Charles was a brilliant businessman who understood the power of marketing. But we should also include that Claude Johnson, who often said he was the hyphen in Rolls-Royce, became the managing director and publicity genius that helped expand the company further. In 1904, they debuted their first vehicle, the Rolls-Royce 10 HP, at the Paris Salon exhibition, which was eventually renamed Paris Motor Show. They only manufactured 16 of these automobiles from the intended 20 units. And if you can find one of the 4 believed to still exist today, it's worth a fortune. In 2007, one sold for £3.2 million. In 1906, they released their second vehicle, the Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. And after completing a 15,000-mile run, they one-upped themselves and proved that the engine was so silent that it wouldn't spill a cup of water placed on the running machine. The Autocar publication considered it the best car in the world. About 1,500 of these models still exist today. And this engineering brilliance is so valuable that one owner had his insured for $35 million in 2005. Rolls-Royce proved to be a force in the automobile industry, so Charles attempted to persuade Henry to build an aeroplane engine, as Charles' second passion was flying. But Henry rejected it, stating that he would rather focus on vehicles. Yet, with the company's growing success, Charles dedicated more time to flying. He resigned as technical director to focus entirely on planes because he preferred flying over driving, as there are no policemen in the air. In 1909, he purchased a Wright Flyer aircraft, and a year later, he became the first person to fly a non-stop 2-way crossing of the English Channel using a short Wright biplane. He was hailed the greatest hero of the day by the press. Unfortunately, the Daredevil was the first British to die in a flying crash. He was only 32. During this time, Royce's health began to deteriorate. Despite his terrible health, Henry Royce continued to work hard and sketch designs from his bedside. The Rolls-Royce brand was so sought after that by 1921, there was a 3-year backlog for orders. To this very day, manufacturing is still done by hand, and it can take up to 6 months to build one car. Henry Royce was knighted and given the Order of the British Empire in 1930, and in 1933 he succumbed to illness. But the night before Henry died, he sketched an adjustable shock absorber and wanted his engineers to make it. He died before the letter could be delivered. Both men died doing what they loved best. Henry Royce said it best: "The quality will remain long after the price is forgotten." See you in our next video, and always remember, Invictus Luxury, for people who want more.